Good morning. I would like to give a prayer for the day for all my relations of the world. I will speak to you in one of the languages of this land, the Cheyenne language. Tsitsistais, Tsitsinstis. That's it. On. Hana, 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 Hana. That's it. It's a judge, a pyramid woman. Near home, not doubt. Still hard to mind. To me, what's done here is not with the minister. But that can is stopped. And she bought him in a war is stopped on his foot. See, I'm hopeful with one to the room. Near down a male, what's done here is no, I'm a done. Now, a pyramids and on a tipped up. The war is stood. Knit dog, what is pivot. The woman touched. It did what's done here list. It gone stars. Now no knit it on host. Now every seminar it's money's left. No listen and now. To die for the issue. To die who heart is shall Mr. War I tell my up. No, but what Cahana hits. Then she watched tights near this the minutes. Now given it a was in the dark. Ni monster, Timo anatama. To dava ma piva. No, not to die, hit to die, me up to it's your man. Die piva me up to die piva is to die piva one is you. No, tea, mano, it's it. Ni anone ochiman, ni is just the piva. Die piva must stop to die piva is to. Now, a document she watched to the nearest limits. So hard to mind. The Timon and a war is stood. Now, what's done? It's done here. Mine in the winter. It's history. Come on, what's done here? The help. What a star that help. Now, make sure it help. A duck. Pivot, Timon. Now, Jay, man, to tell Jay and Mr. Money. Jay, the doctor, much what's done here is not done. Die pills, the die pill, most stuff. Now, if it's a minute, just enough to Jay, his no, how am I hit now ish, now ish, now ish, now ish. Now, I'm not harming the dog, then I'm his son. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Henrietta. Welcome, everyone, to this session of Humanity Rising as we begin our final day. I want to begin by bringing a very brief report from our sky watching parties, which have been phenomenal in North Carolina with Chris Bledsoe, in Albuquerque, New Mexico with Bertie Jaworski. They have been bearing witness to the presence of the orbs amongst us in a plethora of configurations. And last night in Albuquerque, the group actually witnessed a UFO, a saucer, landing with a very specific message for the forum. We'll be talking much more about that this afternoon in our final session. We'll have some videos of some of the orbs, so stay tuned. For now, with this session, I want to say that we have now reached the heart of the State of the World Forum. This session is the heart. We spent the last 3 days pondering the various intelligences, and now with this session, we need to go within. Among the ancients and among deeply spiritual practitioners since time immemorial, the space between the ablution, the cleansing, and the sacrifice, the space in between, was the Holy of Holies, because that is the space in which we purify the soul with clear intent. Because it's only through the purification of our souls before the act that we become capable of ascending to the heights to which we aspire. It's in this spirit that I want to welcome my good friend and colleague, Tom Eddington, who will be moderating this session. Thank you, everyone, and welcome. Tom?
Yeah, thank you, Jim. You spoke so eloquently about what the intention and the purpose of being here today, this morning, is all about. How do we purify ourselves of our traumas? Because it's only through that purification process can we connect not only to our own consciousness, but the consciousness of the universe. That's the invitation for each of us. That's the invitation for humanity. We have assembled an extraordinary group of people with us this morning to share their own personal journeys of dealing with trauma, how they've approached it, how they've gone through it or are going through it. Our panel will represent Indigenous perspectives, lived experiences, scientists, scholars, and others to speak to this very important moment about how does humanity, in the words of Saskia earlier this week, how do we realize our potential being biodiversity artists? How do we co-evolve with all species on the planet? How do we co-evolve and be in alignment with the cosmos? And so we're going to take you on a journey this morning from trauma, both individual and collective, through the path of forgiveness acknowledgement, apology, compassion, with the potential of personal and human healing, planetary healing, so that the potential of a flourishing future for each of us and for the world is realized. So I'd like to invite our first panelist to join us, Dominique Rankin. He's joining us from Quebec, and we'll share some opening comments and a bit about his story.
Hello, everyone.
Je voudrais remercier la grand-maman pour les prières.
I would like first to thank the grandmother for her prayers when we started.
J'ai regardé mon calumet devant moi.
I have my sacred pipe in front of me and I was looking at it.
Et le message que je voudrais porter ici,
And the message I want to convey,
premièrement, je suis très fier d'être ici.
first of all, is that I'm really proud to be here today.
Et on a toute cette expérience-là de différents, chacun de nous.
Each one of us have our own experience.
J'ai jamais oublié ma langue.
I never forgot my first language.
C'est plus facile pour moi adresser aux gens ma langue.
It's easier for me to address the people in my own language.
Mais des messages au niveau mondial comme
But
ça, il faut absolument qu'on se comprenne entre nous.
when we have deliver such a message like the one we have to convey today, I have to use a universal language.
Je suis un des survivants de passionnants.
I'm one of those survivors of the residential school era.
Et je voudrais vous parler comment je me suis sorti cette noirceur-là.
And I'd like to talk about how I got out of this darkness.
J'étais vraiment perdu dans le temps.
I was really lost for a long time.
Et je suis très content de retrouver mes ancêtres.
And I'm very happy that I had the chance to come back to my ancestors.
Et surtout, les aînés qui m'ont vraiment tenu la main pour avancer.
And especially the elders who held my hand so that I can move forward.
Et je ne voyais rien devant moi.
At first, I could see nothing ahead of me.
J'avais tout simplement des idées de quitter le monde.
Simply ideas of leaving this world.
Mais j'ai entendu Jim parler des extraterrestres qui sont venus. Il y a des esprits partout qui nous écoutent aujourd'hui.
I heard Jim talking about these extraterrestrials, and as a matter of fact, there are spirits all around us today.
C'est grâce à tous les esprits qui sont venus me voir, qui sont collés près de moi, que j'ai réussi à chausser mes mocassins.
And thanks to these wonderful spirits around me, that I was able to come back to my moccasins.
Et c'est là que j'ai connu les mocassins, ce n'est pas des pantoufles, ce sont des histoires.
Moccasins are not slippers. They're full of history.
Les aînés, ils ont mis avant moi.
Elders wore them before me.
Et ils ont laissé des traces sur cette terre sacrée.
Left their traces on this sacred earth.
C'est ça que je voudrais vous partager avec vous, avec l'histoire. Je suis content aujourd'hui, ça me touche beaucoup parce que ça fait le 10e anniversaire de la fameuse histoire de la vérité et la réconciliation.
Here in Canada, we're celebrating this year the 10th anniversary of the report from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that we had about the residential schools era.
Je sais qu'il va y avoir beaucoup d'émotions parce qu'on va parler de notre histoire. Nous, c'est tous des survivants qui vont être là ensemble.
And tomorrow we have this celebration, and a lot of people who survived those schools will be present, and I know it's going to be very emotional.
pour l'avenir des jeunes générations.
We'll talk about the future for the future generations.
Chaque génération porte ce douleur-là.
Each generation has to carry this pain.
Mais j'y vais là-bas pour aller chercher des affaires très positives en avant.
But I go there because we can get very positive things from it.
Et je suis habitué maintenant de parler de mon histoire de passionnant.
I'm used to talk about what happened to me when I was in the residential school.
Les seules paroles que je peux vous dire avant que je transmets à une autre personne à ma place, on devient, quand on vit dans une situation profonde comme les passionnants, on devient comme des victimes.
When we go through such an ordeal like the one I had to endure when I was in residential school, we become like a victim.
Aujourd'hui, je parle, je suis bien,
But today I feel good.
j'ai plus honte
I'm not ashamed anymore
parce que la vérité est là.
because truth is here.
Si je dis pas la vérité, j'aurai jamais ma réconciliation moi-même.
If we don't start with truth, we never have reconciliation.
Je suis là pour les futures générations
And I'm here today for the future generations.
et je suis très fier de participer à cette rencontre
And
ici.
very honored to be here with you all today.
Je voudrais saluer tout le monde,
I would like to greet everyone here.
le pays où vous êtes. Nous sommes tous Anishinaabe des êtres humains.
Wherever you come from, I say we're all Anishinaabe, which means a human being.
Aujourd'hui, j'ai appris par moi-même à dire à des peuples, je vous aime.
And now I'm able to tell everyone from wherever you are, I love you.
Miigwech. Merci.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dominique. And thank you, Marie-Josee, for helping with the translation. I'd next like to bring in Dr. Lisa Miller. And Lisa, as we bring you into the conversation, just share a bit about your work and who you are. And as Desjardins and others have said throughout history, we're all spirits having a human experience. And so I'd love for you to share a bit about your work and who you are and what you're up to in the world.
Thank you, Tom. And Dominique, thank you for that very beautiful alignment, both your words, but even more so your own spirit came through to all of us and was very realigning and reawakening. I'm coming to our convening today as a scientist of almost 30 years. The entire time I've looked through the lens of science at spirituality in our human composition. MRI studies, long-term clinical course studies, whatever lens we have, we've used to look at who we really are. And through the lens of science, we can say 4 things that are very self-evident to those of you on a spiritual path, but finally now honored and elevated in the mirror of science. The first is that just as we are physical beings and emotional beings, every single one of us is born a naturally spiritual being. We are born with an inborn capacity for sacred, transcendent relationship to the source of all life, to the sources expressed through all creation, nature, humans, birds, crows, sun, and to our highest self. We are all naturally spiritual beings. We know that through twin studies, and we have even, point 2, found the common circuits in the brain of every human being, just as we all share common circuits for auditory perception or visual perception. We all share common circuits for transcendent relationship with Source, who I call God. You may use your word, your understanding. But I have never heard anyone ever claim two sources of all life. There seems to be human agreement on one source of all life, and we are built in that image to be in relationship with Source. 3, when we strengthen our birthright, we are less depressed, less addicted, more resilient, and given to the character strengths and virtues. And finally, 4, we are able then to live in an awakened life. The lens through the brain, the lens through which we witness the consistent daily presence of Source, of God in our lives, the ongoing divinity of every breath in our life becomes not just a belief, but a sustained perception. This is our birthright. We have through time known this, and yet in the past couple hundred years, we have shut down this deep birthright, this gift of human knowing. We have many forms built into our mind of inborn organic knowing. We have logic, empiricism. I use it as a scientist. But we also have mystical awareness, prayer, meditation, ceremony, intuition. And we share these forms of knowing with all living beings. The paradigm shift upon us that will set us free of our old problems is that in the 20th century, we thought of ourselves as knowing in our head. We thought of ourselves as better because we had an opposable thumb. We thought of ourselves very differently as we can come to see and know ourselves in the 21st century. The brain no longer is a factory that makes thoughts. The brain is more like an antenna, a conduit that receives sacred consciousness. And therefore we can hear Source and guidance. The brain as an antenna allows us to feel visitation, whether it's God or an ancestor or the spirit of a fellow living being. The brain as an antenna is not just the prerogative of we humans, but all living beings have access to the sacred consciousness field. Once we assume that it is not the human anthropocentric world, but rather a Source, God-centered world, a sacred consciousness world, then trees and crow and every human being, no matter what our zipped up body looks like, all have access to the unitive sacred consciousness field. Memory is a way back. It's not stored in the head. Inspiration isn't added up, A plus B plus C, but it has come through a profound renewal, a reshuffling of meaning, because knowing is our ability to be an antenna in all of us, all living beings, and access Source. How we get there only looks different superficially, different words, different customs, but where we're going is the same. If we have time, we can share a practice, but I know we have so many beautiful contributors today, Tom. So shall we move to the next contributor, or shall we do a brief practice?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. We'll have you share your practice in the next hour.
Okay.
So I'd like to thank you for sharing and invite in Anita Sanchez. Anita.
Hello, I'm Dr. Anita Sanchez. I'm Nahua, Aztec, and Toltec. My doctorate is in organization development, business and psychology. But I'm also a scientist, always learning, always curious in terms of Indigenous science, the original knowing. And so I'll share a couple of things that have been very helpful while weaving in my personal story. I'm going to start with dream. As a little girl, I was always encouraged by my elders to dream. And as early as 3, I had this dream that I knew when I grew up, there was this earth and all these stick people, different colors and sizes, and we had our hands on each other's heart. And even at 3.5, I knew that to be true. And I still share that dream from places that the main room is on a dirt floor to C-suites. And that's important because what I realize about trauma, what I know, is that pain, you can move through it. And it does take work. I'm not going to lie about that. Pain pushes, but vision pulls. So I'll tell you the things that I had to get through, but it was part of it, of the way to get through, was remembering my vision. That was part of why I'm here. That is part of why I am spirit in human form. And so, although I had a very wonderful, in many ways, upbringing, economically not very quite poor, 8 of us in 2 rooms, and we delighted when we had 5 rooms. But I kept a secret. For 9 years, from age 4 to 13, I was sexually abused. And I stayed silent about it. And just did all the things that, oh, I'm so good in school and just like separating from my body. And then at 13, my father, who was an alcoholic, he'd go around after work, he'd go around the corner to the neighborhood bar and he'd have a drink. What he didn't know in 1967, when he went to that bar, he sat on the same place where earlier that day, a black man sat and a white man and him had an argument. So as my father sat there, the white man returned and shot 3 bullets through his head and killed him on the spot. As you can imagine, that was a lot, a whole lot, especially for a 13-year-old. And, in looking back, I began to see it didn't make sense. How could I have this amazing dream in this future and then these horrific things? I mean, so I wished a real low. That low was really trying to take my life at 13. And I want to say, I am so happy it did not work. And for any of you out there, please, there's so much more. And what brought me back in part was the dream. And my ancestors who were there, like, wait a minute, you're not going to go. And I was pleading at that point as I was writhing and throwing up, and please, I want to be here. I know I'm supposed to be here. But a week after my father died, a woman came to our house, a white woman and her young son. He was probably around 13, my age. And she came and she said, and I was by my mom for at least a month after my father was murdered. And she said, Mrs. Sanchez, I just had you to know that my husband would never have killed your husband if he knew he was Mexican and Native American. He thought he was Black. And then she started going on about Black people. And I was sort of shocked. And my mom, for the first time ever, I heard her scream at a stranger. She used to yell at us to get together. But she just screamed and said, stop. You don't even know what you're saying. You don't even know what you're teaching your son. But I want you to know I'm going to pray really hard for your soul, but you get off my porch. I'm going to fast forward. Lots happened to me early on, as I said, that led to my low in terms of not honoring my spirit and this human form that I'm in. But as I start very early working in corporations and businesses, because all of us had to get through school really fast. So at 16, I started college because we just needed to move forward. And what I taught was diversity, equity, inclusion. And I'd have circles of white people sharing their dreams and how they were taught, and people of color sharing their dreams. And what I began hearing over month after month after month was the beauty of the people of color, but also of the white people. Them sharing how they had dreams of what they were going to contribute to the world and how they loved the trees, like I love the trees and things. And then they They said, my parents, many of them said, my parents taught me that I'm better than you. And I love my parents. But I need you to know that I never want to be that part of my parents. And then I began seeing, maybe not fast enough, changing policies and practices and raising people up, not fast enough, but I saw that. And while all this was happening, I was having this dream of what I just told you. This dream, but in this dream, I saw all of it as clearly as I told you. But the boy's face was gone. It was horrible. Everything was clear. But as I was working, I was also dealing with the contradiction and the healing, the wholeness that I am. And I realized after a few months, through my dream, the boy's face was clear. To this day, I know if I met this man, he has passed on. But if I had met him in an airport, I'd know he was. And what I'd want to say is, I'm sorry. That summer day, I lost my father. But you lost your father too, and you grew up knowing he was a murderer. And that 13-year-old believed, at some level, consciously or unconsciously, that the only route he could go is to be the murderer, either psychological or literally. And I realized I took away his face. I took away his humanity. The very thing I was taught by my people, by my elders, to not do, because we're all related and connected. And so I know today that with what I knew, if that could have been there with me at 13, when that white woman and that boy came to our door, I would have squeezed my mother's hand and asked to invite them in. A white man murdered my father, not the white race. There are a lot of things that happen that still cause great pain intergenerationally and in present time. That is like something trying to cut off my breath. But I remember, I'm spirit in human form. I want to use my energy for what I want to create, not spiraling downward. That does not mean I forget. That doesn't mean I don't seek justice. But where I come from is I was taught, come from a place of love of all our relations, human, non-human, seen and unseen. And I'm very grateful for this knowing as Indigenous science teach me original knowledge, and even as in my psychology courses and even organizational development courses that I was sort of taught, but not in the full way of being spirit in human form. Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. Beautiful. Thank you for your vulnerability and for sharing. I'd like to next invite Father Joshtrum Kureethadam, who's joining us from the Pontifical University in Rome. Father Josh.
So it seems as if he might not be in the call right now. I think
Okay.
I'll try to identify him. Maybe he had internet issues.
Okay, I'll invite Marie Josee, if you could return.
Yes, I'm here. So I'd like to tell you about one sentence that I hear often Grandfather Dominique say. He says often, when the earth suffers, human beings suffer. And when human beings suffer, Mother Earth suffers. So you'll hear that all the time from the Indigenous elders, is that we're all interconnected. And all the initiatives we see right now in the world in order to help the earth or to help humanity, there's one thing that is missing, according to what I've learned from the elders of the Indigenous peoples, is that if we don't take care of our inner climate, it's like if we're repeating the same mistake. So what the elders of the First Peoples are telling us from all over the world is that we have to see how lost we are in the outside world. We are obsessed by everything that is outside. And it's like if we're living this reversed way of being. And this is the shift that needs to be made. And I've heard so many prophecies from the First Peoples. And here in Canada, we have the Anishinaabe First Nation. And they have this beautiful prophecy called the Prophecy of the Seven Fires. And I will summarize very quickly, but at the end of this prophecy, the elders say that humanity will have to make a very, very important choice, very crucial, a choice between two paths. The first path is the rush towards relentless technological development, or the other path will be the spiritual path, which is a slower path, but this is the one we all have to take. And it talks about this spiritual awakening that everybody's talking about today. And for me, this awakening for my own personal life, since I'm emerged into this philosophy, the red path, as we say over here, one thing that has been very important for me to change my way of being and to come back to this inner way of being was what we call the medicine wheel. This is the basis of the philosophy of the First Peoples in many places. And for me, the medicine wheel, and I will summarize it very quickly, it's really helpful to get rid of this anxiety that we see so often within the human mind nowadays. We see that so many people are insecure. So it's really helpful to come back to a very good ground of being, good roots. And it's also giving meaning to a life that can seem really meaningless. So I will summarize very quickly, but the medicine wheel goes with the 4 directions. Probably you've seen this symbol very often before, but when elders look at life, they see it's a cycle. And when we think about the direction east, it's all about rebirth. Every morning when the sun is rising, it's telling human beings, look, everything can always be reborn. It's always renewal. And when we turn to the south, you receive a lot of heat. So it's about all the love you can receive before giving. What I've learned from our elders is that if you want to respect the people, you have to start respecting yourself first. This is what we have to do. We have to give ourselves love, and then we can love the others in a better way. When you think of the sunset direction west, it's all about letting go. It's all about acceptance. And Grandfather Dominique can talk about that later on. And his testimony is so precious about acceptance. And then once you are letting go of everything that is painful, all the things that you need to learn from life, then you turn towards the north, and then it's about transformation, but also about inner freedom and peace and healing. So this is the main 4 directions that the elders talk about very often, but I add also the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th direction. The 5th is the earth, the 6th is the sky, and then everything merges here into the heart. And then that makes you see that human beings have a life on an horizontal plane, but also on a vertical plane. And this is the secret. It's like if our life is a big movie on the horizontal plane, but who is the projector? The projector is you in this verticality. And if you change the projector, then the film starts changing. This is a very, very deep secret. And all the prophecies are telling us right now, this is the shift that needs to be made. And I would like to finish by saying that very often we want to accuse the others. We want to accuse humanity. I hear very often people saying, I don't like human beings. I prefer the animals. But humanity is one. It's all interconnected. It's like this big ocean, and each one of us are a drop inside this ocean. And what we believe is that if we make that shift individually, if we change this inner climate, then a shift can happen for the whole humanity. When enough people in the past knew how to make fire, all human beings knew how to make fire. So I think that now it's a very beautiful invitation to start a new sacred fire altogether. Thank you very much. And we'll be here to listen to your questions and listen to the other testimonies that are so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie Josee. I'd like to invite Father Josh into the conversation.
Yes, sound. Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I join you with a great sense of gratitude. Thank you so very much for this kind invitation. I also join with a great sense of joy to be part of this wonderful panel and of the entire family. So many of us joining online this evening, this morning for you, evening for us here in Rome, and also with a sense of hope. I think especially Humanity Rising this year is communicating this profound sense of hope. I thought of sharing with you three simple reflections. First of all, a sense of awe and wonder, what the Greeks call thaumatsei, that is the cradle of human reflection, of human adoration. I teach cosmology, and last couple of decades especially, I've been very impressed by the enormity of the universe. The universe, our cosmic home, has something like 2 trillion galaxies, imagine. 2 trillion, 2,000 billion galaxies. And each galaxy containing something like 200 to 250 billion stars, like our sun. And, our nearest galaxy is Andromeda, the only one that we can see with the naked eye. And if we want to reach Andromeda, and if we were to travel at the speed of light, that is 300,000 kilometers per second, it would take us something like 2.5 million years to reach Andromeda. And then we want to visit the galaxy next to Andromeda, which is the triangle. That will take us another further 3 million years, This enormity, the vastness of this universe, and what really creates wonder in me is that in this infinitely vast universe, Earth is so special, our home, the only home for life as far as we know. So this is the first reflection I want to leave with you, this sense of wonder, this sense of awe and adoration, admiration. The second reflection is one of grief. I remember in 2015 when we were in Paris for COP15. I remember a very difficult day of negotiations. And in the evening, at one of the press conferences, one of the scientist was speaking, and he was really desperate. And he said, today, at one point, I wondered whether intelligent life exists on planet Earth. So that is the sense of grief. You know, our Earth, our home is so special, so beautiful, but we are destroying life on Earth. Not just human lives, very, very tragic, the number of wars we are waging, but also the lives of so many other species. And I think it's time to grieve. The third and the final reflection is one of confession. I think we need to acknowledge our sins. We need to acknowledge the harm we are doing to the community of life, to the rest of humanity, but also to the entire family of life. And I'm reminded of what Pope Benedict once said, that the external deserts are expanding because the internal deserts have become so vast. I think a meeting like the one we are having today also invites us to turn, to look into ourselves, within ourselves, if there are deserts expanding outside, if there is so much of disharmony, so much of violence in the world, it is because there is a lot of violence, a lot of disharmony within ourselves. And it's only when we confess, when we repent, that healing from this trauma can begin. And I want to conclude with the figure, with the example of Saint Francis of Assisi, who inspired Pope Francis. And one of the great joys, blessings I had all these years was to very humbly assist Pope Francis in the area of creation care. And Saint Francis of Assisi, and also 2026 will be the 800th anniversary of his death. So we are going to speak a lot about Francis of Assisi. But I want to propose Francis of Assisi today for this healing. This healing that will take place when we return to our cosmic origins, our earthly origins, when we return to the rest of humanity, to the rest of creation, human beings, but also all God's creatures. And thirdly, when we return to the Creator. So I would like to propose very humbly this triple path of healing by returning to the cosmos, to our earthly home, by returning to oneself, to ourselves, and to our fellow species, and by returning to the great energy, the great power, the great love, as Poet Dante said, the love that moves the stars. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Father Josh. I'd like to next invite in Dr. Jim Gordon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tom. It's really an honor for me to be here, to be with my fellow panelists, and to be speaking with all of you. It feels so appropriate for me to be here and to be once again learning from Indigenous people, which has been very important to me as part of my own trauma healing and part of the program we've developed at the Center for Mind-Body Medicine to heal population-wide trauma in many places around the world, as well as here in the US. And what Anita said earlier really struck a chord with me, that the trauma, the pain of trauma pushes us through the limitations often that we've experienced in our lives. And it's the vision of what might be possible that pulls us ahead and into which we grow over time. So as I have moved through the trauma that has come to me, and I credit Indigenous people with the understanding and the wisdom that trauma is not an aberration. That trauma does come to all humans at some point in our lives. As I've come through that, and over the years, as a researcher at the National Institute of Mental Health, and now as the founder and CEO of the Center for Mind-Body Medicine, have developed a program for healing population-wide trauma that incorporates and has been inspired by the teachings of Indigenous people from all over the world, who've been my teachers, as well as by modern science, and creating what I hope is a relatively peaceful marriage between the two. So I want to just highlight a couple aspects of our approach to trauma healing as a kind of to open the door to discussion of it in the session ahead. And our work is really based on self-awareness and self-care as the beginning, and group support as the medium in which self-awareness, self-care, self-realization can flourish. And we've developed a model that includes 16 self-care techniques, many drawn from the generosity of Indigenous leaders and healers and elders who've shared those with me, as well as from modern science. And combining those and teaching those in a model that emphasizes the importance of group and community support and participation. And you can read about that in my book, Transforming Trauma, The Path to Hope and Healing. And you can also look at the examples on the Center for Mind-Body Medicine's website. I just want to highlight a couple of aspects of our training. We have indeed worked with Indigenous people all over North America, not hoping that that work will grow, and marrying our approach of self-awareness and self-care with traditional ceremony and traditional healing. We were called by elders into the Lakota reservation in Pine Ridge after a suicide epidemic in which 22 kids killed themselves in 1 year, and 250 of those kids went to the emergency room, 250 other kids. And we worked together with the elders and the counselors and the teachers and the youth on Pine Ridge to create a program that we were able to bring to all the schools on Pine Ridge. And in the subsequent 3 years, there was only one, still too many, but only one youth suicide and only 20 kids going to the emergency room each year. Because the people, and one of the elders, Basil Braveheart, said that what we're doing is the missing piece between the difficulties and the chaos of modern life and the trauma that has been experienced by Indigenous people, just a kind of a bridge to help bring people back and open them more easily to their own traditional systems of healing. So we've been able to do that in various places. We also, I just want to touch on the program that we have in Gaza for one moment, because it's such a tragedy unfolding there. We have parallel programs of healing trauma in Israel and Gaza, and we have had for over 20 years. Our team in Gaza, in spite of the terrible calamities they've suffered, 4 of our 20 members of our original leadership team have been killed, and everyone has lost multiple family members. In spite of that, our program, which has now grown to 70 people working in Gaza, has been able to bring our approach to more than 250,000 people since the this current war began in October of 2023. And I invite you to look at our website and to see the incredible grace and beauty and courage of people who are often on the edge of despair, who come to our work, who take it to heart, who are embraced by a community that is partly a community of skill, but always a community of love, and that they are able to share their work so widely and so well. And we are studying the effects of it right now. So I just want to say that for me, my trauma, the trauma of my youth, although very painful, has opened me to these possibilities, and that Indigenous people have been my teachers and helping me to bring the science that I learned as a Western trained psychiatrist together with Indigenous wisdom to provide a healing approach that is welcomed by people on every continent, and where people see in what we're doing the roots of their own systems of healing. So we're returning what we have been so graciously given by others. So, and it's beautiful to be here among people who continue to be my teachers and to be with all of you who are present. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Thank you for your comments, but also thank you for the work that you have been doing for many years. It's a gift for the world. I'd like to next invite grandmother Henrietta Mann back to share her comments and her experience, speaking of societal trauma.
Good day to you again. Thank you for making me a part of this group that has so much intelligence and wisdom of the world in which they live and that we share. I am a Cheyenne woman, not sister. That means I am one of the people. I am also a member of our Cheyenne spiritual community and have been called the oldest sun dancer of both the Northern and the Southern Cheyenne people. We are, as Cheyenne, a people of peace. Our teachings come to us out of the sacred mountain called Noah's Bear Butte, which sits on the periphery of the Black Hills of South Dakota. We were given our organizational structure and our lawways as a people in which peace is paramount in the way we live. We were traditionally governed by a council of 44 peace chiefs. Thus, I can say, when we were planted on this earth spiritually to walk through life, we were planted as a people of spirit and as a people of peace. We live and have lived long on this land with those that are first to love this place. We were literally planted here by the Creator, who has given us spiritual roots and who has given us life ways that continue to govern our lives today in this time, in this place in which we live, no longer just with Indigenous people, but with the four children of this land, the red children, the white children, the black children, the yellow-brown children. We are all made equally. I am a member of the Cheyenne spiritual community and have been referred to as the oldest sun dancers of the people to whom I belong. We walk peacefully through this land, and we're told that at one time we would meet a peoples who would come to us from where the sun rises. They indeed came, and as told us, they brought your different and strange ways with them, strange ways of being, their different ways of seeing, and the kinds of material items that they brought us, among which was described a stick that speaks with the voice of thunder. We know that stick that speaks with the voice of thunder. As the peoples, as we continue to walk on this earth in which we are spiritual planted, we came to the time 1864, when we still lived in our traditional territories in what is now referred to as the state of Colorado. There in 1864, 1964, a camp made up primarily of our peace chiefs was attacked by a Methodist minister leading a force of 700 soldiers who attacked us in a surprise dawn attack and began to fire into that encampment, despite the fact that the chief of that particular camp, Black Cattle, Mokhtavisto, had raised a United States flag and beneath it a white flag of peace. The massacre and the butchery that occurred there are difficult for me to describe. Children were used as target practice. The hands and limbs of people were cut off, and the scalps of the people to whom I belong, our peace chiefs and men, were marched into the new city of Denver in 1864. We called that the Sand Creek Massacre, the massacre of the Cheyenne and the Arapaho people along Sand Creek in southeastern Colorado. Move forward 4 years to the valley of the Ouachita River in Indian Territory that we now know as Oklahoma. That same band, Black Kettle's band, that peace chief, the greatest of all peace chiefs, was again attacked, this time by a man leading the 7th Cavalry called George Armstrong. It was as if the butchery at Sand Creek was repeated 4 years later. 53 women and children were taken prisoners of war, among them one of my great-grandmothers, White Buffalo woman, who had survived the massacre at Sand Creek, and the other great-grandmother who also survived but had been wounded. It is difficult to maintain and to describe for you the kind of savagery that came to the people to whom I belong. As one of the ceremonial women of the tribe, we are still committed toward peace, to maintaining our place in this world, to maintain our ceremonies, to never forget those ceremonies, and as we continue to observe them year after year after year after year, along the summer solstice, we renew the world. We maintain our promises to the Great Spirit Maya to continue to practice these ceremonies, to renew the life of all the people, 4 children of earth, and this beautiful, beautiful world in which we live. One of our prophets told us that we would come to a time, and I believe we are in that time, where the earth will burn and that life will change. And it is for this reason that we, who maintain our spiritual commitments to all life, to all peoples, to all our relations, continue to observe the ceremony referred to as the Sundance that we call the Ho'ohel, the Lodge of New Life. Thus, we as a people, despite the kind of history that we have endured and encountered after those relatives came to us from the East, continue to maintain our spiritual commitments, our ceremonies, and make our sacrifices in that lodge of new life so that all the people of this world and this beautiful creation that we share can all be renewed and live for the children and the grandchildren that come after us. We continue to be the spirits of this land. Thank you.
Thank you, Grandmother. I'd like to next invite in Chief Phil Lane to share some of your opening comments.
Midak Yepi, my very beloved relatives of our human family. I'd like to express a very deep and heartfelt handshake and thanksgiving to all those relatives who spoke before me, especially my auntie Henrietta, who always brings me to tears when she tells a story of what happened to Black Kettle. And I've heard so many of those stories of people who truly lived a life of prayer without substances of any kind to uplift their spirits to that higher place. They lived in a sacred way that was free of all save our Creator. Arising every morning at sunrise to bathe, even in the middle of winter, would break the ice and put the newborn child in that ice for months to strengthen them up, to prepare them for what was to come. I think it's important to understand that when the predestined arrival of our relatives from Europe happened, of which some are within me, that there was over 100 million indigenous people living across the Americas. That research was really, when I was a university professor, was really advanced through the book 1491. Can you imagine over 100 million indigenous people? And of course, we know today, as we eat our food today, wherever you are on Mother Earth, almost 80% of that was domesticated in the Americas. And our prophecies foretold this. They said a great, great spiritual winter time was coming. This winter time, we would lose many, would return to the spiritual world. But one thing that was known from the very core of our core, there is no death, just a change of worlds. That each of us has a sacred part of us that comes when we're conceived. Tardif, we say in the Dakota language, everybody has that. That's that part of us that transcends the physical world of time and space. It's that part of us of which all is contained: creative thought, rationality, memory. Everything that makes us human is within that soul, not within the brain. And with this walking Mother Earth, time is over, and that sacred part leaves me to go on to the other spiritual worlds beyond. This just fades back into Mother Earth. I began my journey at Haskell Institute, where my mother and father had met when they were sent there to school. They had a process during that time where in Haskell, over to where Jim Thorpe was, went to school in Pennsylvania, Carlisle Indian School, to take the leaders' children from the different reservations and send to these boarding schools. And so thankfully, my mother and father met there. My dad said, he said, when he saw my mother coming, he was 17, she was 13. He says, when I saw your mother, son, he said, that was the woman I'm going to marry. So I know I came from great love. At the same time, you know, when I was born there at Haskell, I had my first encounter with this mainstream society with Dr. Spock. My mother very innocently was living there with my grandmother and my oldest aunt, Auntie, in a little apartment there at Haskell. And the doctor told her that formula was better than breast milk. She had plenty of breast milk. So he gave me formula, except he didn't give me enough. So I was crying and crying, crying, crying to the depths of my soul. And I experienced this, actually went through this process. I actually went back to this time and saw the whole thing, crying and crying. Then they call the doctor. What do we do? Don't pick him up, you'll spoil him. And I cried and cried and cried and cried until finally I ended up in a coma, and they rushed me to the hospital, put me in an incubator for a week or so. So about the first 3 or 4 weeks of my life, that was it. So that was a challenge. That was a test. That was a test that the Creator gave me. And then I was sexually abused when I was 12. You know, by an older boy who you know, he and this other white boy had terrorized me as a little guy. But at the same time, my father told me very, very, very early, he said, son, he said, you got to accept something. This life has suffering in it. And that suffering is to do what is needed to be done, just like in the mother's womb. In the mother's womb, you grow your physical arms and legs and eyes and ears to prepare you for this world, a physical world of time and space. From the womb world, you come and you grow. And you look all kinds of different forms in that womb world. But when you come to this world, you come into this world, you leave your womb suit behind. And we took care of that womb suit. We put that up in sacred places. That's because we knew that where we came from was sacred. So here I am in this physical world of time and space. So what's my purpose here? To get money? Well, in the end, they don't take big dump trucks of money and dump in your grave or put it where you're going to be burned up. Our elders have taught us our purpose here is to grow spiritually, to grow our physical bodies, our spiritual bodies, to become more compassionate, more loving, more kind, more just, more understanding. And you know, for I think probably one of the greatest things that helped me in my spiritual journey, because I'll tell you, I had a lot of anger in my soul until I had this spiritual experience back in 1967. And by the way, the journey is not one of always, you get tested. One of the things that really helped me along in this journey, because I've had my honeymoon, you know, I had a honeymoon where everything seemed like it was just perfect. Then my wife's brutally raped. Then you come back from that. Why, Creator? Why? So many people ask. For a long time, I'll tell you, I had resentments until finally it came very clear to me. My beloved Creator who created me from the same source as created all of us, every one of us, would not punish me for doing the very best we could, for praying, for getting up in the morning and taking clean bathing in the water, sunrise, caring for our children, understanding our elders and our children, the most precious things we had. Our Creator wouldn't punish us for that. And I realized we have not been punished. We've been prepared, spiritually prepared for this very day we live in right now. All of us, every one of us. And to that question, I don't want to go on too long because I don't want somebody to jump in and stop me, but that question about there being a life beyond this life. I remember my father pointing up to the stars. He said, son, to every one of these stars has its planets. And in these planets is life no one can compute. No one can compute. And there is an unseen world. There is no death to change of worlds, as they say. And those beloved ones are as closer than our closest vein, right here with us, beside us, sitting with us, and each and every one of us is a spiritual representative of all that have gone before us. Every one of us here. From the very beginning, we represent them. So we can have peace just like we're having peace here. And we can heal like we're healing here, speaking to each other of our hearts and minds and thoughts and feelings, respecting our elders. And I'll tell you, to have Henrietta here, Auntie Henrietta, I'll tell you, you're honored. I'm so honored. She's one of the last ones left. And I knew him. I had the honor of knowing him. just like my dear brother Dominique knew the old ones, William Commanda, Pete Ketches, Lee Piper, my mom and dad, they were the ones. But they're here. And our time is now as a human family to understand we're one human family. One human family. And all of us are indigenous people of Mother Earth, but even more so. And every single cell in our body is iron. And iron is created in supernovas. We are star beings, even beyond this. Can you imagine? Every single cell in our body has iron in it, created by a supernova. How did that happen? How did that happen? Because we are children of a great mystery. Hawami chante washtelo, shunkmanohe meado, chiripasava meado, hawami chante washte. Aho.
Thank you, Phil. I'd like to next invite in our last panelist before we go into a dialogue. Dr. Alex Cahana is with us.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Jim, for inviting me to this heart of the heart of our conversations. Thank you to all the previous panelists who shared heartfelt things. And I will ask you to listen to what I have to say in the next few minutes, not with an open mind, because we probably don't have neither the digital, financial, or scientific literacy to understand everything, but with an open heart and understand the intention that is behind what we're sharing. I also want us to thank Tom and Jim for all the support that they're giving for the work that we're doing in the Kingdom of Bhutan, and have you all join in this auspicious day of the 118th National Day of the Kingdom, that not only represents its transition from regional rule to a unified state, but also represents its milestones in giving to the planet the gross national happiness, its democratic transition, its environmental stewardship, and the social well-being that is in the heart of what they care. In terms of my personal story, I am a pain physician. I've seen thousands, if not tens of thousands, of patients who have suffered around the world from acute and chronic pain. And I've heard the language of suffering, and I've learned three things. I've learned that not all pain is bad, and definitely not all pain relief is good, and that the man-made opioid epidemic has been devastating throughout the world. I've understood that the opposite of health is not disease, but isolation, and so that the path of that through disease and illness will be connectedness. So all our efforts should be to connect ourselves to our friends, to our family, to our faith, to our data, to our information, to each other. It's not about interoperability, but about intercooperability. And I've also learned as a physician that you cannot really seriously speak about mental health and physical health without speaking about planet health and financial health. That is why I've been in the last now 13 years focused on building high-tech, high-touch, in-touch communities around the world, and trying to create actually models of cooperation between us that really will save ourselves from our worst impulses. It is clear from the words that and the sense of urgency that has been expressed today that many of us think that this is the end of the world, but it actually isn't. It's an end of a world view. And one of the reasons why we're working in the Kingdom of Bhutan is because they've never ascribed, like a lot of the ancestral wisdom that has been expressed here, never ascribed to the world that most of us live in. And so I think that what I'll be trying and hopefully arrive in the conversation is to try to express how is it that we're going to actually connect us and create a model of transparency and trust and the ability to work together. perhaps a bit opposed to some of the voices expressed here. I don't necessarily think that technology and spirits need to be divorced or represent the opposites of something. I actually think of it more as an extension of technology, as an extension of ourselves. Technology does nothing. It's what we do with it that makes a difference. And so one of the things that we're working on very hard is to tokenize the gross national happiness in Bhutan. And for those who don't know, tokenization, you might have heard through other, in the media about blockchain and crypto and things of that sort. Tokenization that I refer to as the conversion of anything of value into a digital format that allows it to stay for perennity. And that actually what it represents is a ability to sustain life through gratitude and care and mindfulness and shared learning, and give intentionality to time. And so perhaps I'll just finish by saying that one of the things that I think is most important to understand is that we live now in a world that loves things and uses people. And what we're trying to achieve is to remind ourselves how to love people and just use things. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that pertain to how this is done, either in villages right now that are done in the rural parts of the kingdom, or to His Majesty's vision of Galepu's mindfulness city, in how an urban environment should actually govern itself with the idea of shared prosperity, because at the end of the day, none of us is as good as all of us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you all. I'd like to invite everyone onto the screen and open this up to a deep and rich conversation. And maybe just to set a bit of context for this conversation, as Jim shared in the opening ceremony on Sunday, this initiative, the reanimation of State of the World Forum, came from the plant kingdom. It came from deep in the heart of the Amazon, asking, and Jim and I accepted to be of service to reanimate the State of the World Forum over the next 6 years, with the intention of helping to elevate human consciousness, believing that that's our only way through. And a requirement for that to happen is twofold. One is that we hospice modernity. This world that we're living in, many people on the planet, is not of service to humanity. It's not of service to all sentient beings. It's not of service to the 850 plus ecosystems around the world. It's not in alignment with the cosmos. And so part of the purpose of the State of the World Forum is for us over the next 6 years to be in deep, deep conversation. Not only about how do we hospice modernity, but what is it replaced by? The second question is, for 250, 240,000 years that the human species has been on planet Earth, it's only the last 6,000 years or so that we have been living with this false narrative that we're a violent species. So part of our question, part of the inquiry is, how do we change that narrative? How do we return to our true nature? How do we let that story go? And then the third piece of this conversation is, how do each of us, as so many of you have shared, honor the trauma, have been able to harvest the wisdom from that trauma to move to a way of embracing the possibility of a flourishing future for yourself and for humanity. And I think I'd like to start this conversation with Dominique, and if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit more about your personal journey and how you move through the trauma that you experienced as a child and how it was you were able to arrive at the place that you are now in your life.
Merci, Tom. Merci. J'étais un petit peu nerveux au début.
I was a little bit nervous when I spoke at first.
Et je ne voulais pas trop parler non
Didn't
plus.
want to talk too much,
Là, je vais parler.
but now I'm going to talk.
Je voudrais juste commencer par parler à comment la vie était belle.
First, I would like to say how beautiful life was before residential
À
school.
partir de 1947
When I was born
jusqu'à
in 1947
1952.
until 1952.
Je fais partie dans une famille de nomades.
I belong to a nomad family.
Maman a donné 18 enfants dans
My
la
mom
forêt.
gave birth to 18 children in the forest.
Je suis venu au monde dans la forêt, tout près de la Sweat Lodge et tout près aussi de la rivière.
I was born in the forest, very close to a sweat lodge and also to a river.
Et on était libre, l'esprit était libre, on était libre aussi les enfants.
We were free, our spirits were free, and we were free as children too.
On a commencé à voir la vie dans la forêt avec les animaux.
We learned to live with the animals in the forest.
Maman elle disait, papa, allez voir les esprits de la forêt.
And mom and dad would say, go meet the spirits of the forest.
Il n'y a rien dangereux dans la forêt.
Nothing is dangerous in the forest.
Et tous, ce sont des bons esprits qui
They
vont t'aider à guider dans ta vie.
They are all good spirits that will help guide you in your life.
Je m'amusais avec des ours.
I used to play with bears.
Ils m'ont accepté de rentrer dans leur famille.
And I was accepted within a family of bears.
Et je l'ai amené de temps en temps chez moi, dans ma famille.
And then I could bring one of them in my family.
Et ils dormaient avec nous.
They would sleep with us.
C'était le plus beau moment dans ma vie.
It was the most beautiful time in my life.
En 1952,
in 1952,
ma vie a commencé à très changement brusque.
And we had a very big transformation in our life, very difficult.
Quand le pouvoir des autorités sont arrivés.
When the power of authorities arrived.
Il y avait eu une attente entre le gouvernement du Canada, Québec, pour nous capturer, qui disait.
There was an agreement within the government in Canada and in Quebec so that they would catch the children, First Nations children.
On ne comprenait pas, moi j'étais très très jeune, je ne comprenais pas pourquoi papa et maman pleuraient tant.
I was so young, I couldn't understand why my parents were crying so much.
On n'avait même pas le temps de plier les bagages, qui disait.
And we didn't even have the time to pack our stuff.
Je ne veux pas juger personne pendant mon histoire.
I don't want to judge anyone when I'm telling my story.
Et je ne voudrais pas non plus de vous transmettre de l'agressivité.
And I don't want either to transmit anger.
C'est la vraie histoire.
It's just the true story.
J'ai encore de la misère.
And it's still painful.
J'ai encore beaucoup de brasse en intérieur.
It's really shaking me within.
Mais il faut en parler.
But we have to talk about it.
Il faut passer en travers de tout ça.
We have to go through all this.
Et on n'avait plus le droit d'aller dans nos territoires.
So in 1952, actually, we didn't have the right to go back to our territories.
J'avais jamais vu d'autre que mes parents, des peuples nomades. C'était la première fois que je voyais des peuples blancs.
And it was the first time I was meeting the white people.
On a été bousculés vraiment dans le pouvoir des gendarmes, des policiers.
We met policemen for the first time.
Ça a été très, très, très dur dans le temps. Mes parents, parce qu'ils sont des chasseurs, des trappeurs, des pêcheurs et tout.
It was very hard because we used to be trappers, hunters, fishermen.
Et j'ai vécu une belle vie quand même en travers de tout ça, mais c'est en 1955, c'est là qu'il y a eu le mouvement très difficile.
And then in 1955, something really much more difficult happened.
Déraciné de nos parents
We were unrooted from our family
avec la force policière.
through the police forces
Il n'y avait aucun respect.
without respect.
J'ai vu ma mère tomber.
I saw my mom falling
Ils
down.
ont poussé ma mère est tombée. C'était la première fois que je voyais tomber ma mère sur la terre.
It was the first time I would see someone pushing my mom on the ground.
Et c'est là qu'on ne savait pas du tout ce qui se passait. On était des enfants.
We were children. We didn't know what was happening.
C'était juste la violence.
Only violence.
Et on n'avait pas le droit d'aller dans les villes, aller acheter de l'épicerie. On n'avait pas le droit.
When we were forced to live in town, we were not allowed to go in grocery stores or public places.
On n'avait pas le droit de parler avec d'autres personnes
We
aussi
were
comme
not
des Blancs.
allowed to speak to white people.
On n'avait pas le droit. Et le passionnat, pour moi, ça a été un choc culturel.
So we were sent to residential school, and then it was a real shock, a
Ma
cultural
mère,
shock.
ma mère, elle nous a habillés avec des peaux des animaux de fourrure. Et
We were dressed with the clothing that my mom made for us with fur or leather.
j'avais des beaux cheveux longs.
I used to have long hair, beautiful hair.
C'est pour avoir des cheveux longs, c'est pas le respect de la terre maman, pas le respect des arbres qui sont debout et surtout le respect de la femme.
And for us, our long hair were in order to respect Mother Earth. They are like the trees on Mother Earth. It's our sign of respect for the earth.
Quand j'ai rentré au pensionnat,
And when I came into the school,
on m'a enlevé tous mes vêtements.
all my clothes were taken off.
Et après,
And
on m'a
then
coupé mes cheveux.
they cut my hair.
J'ai perdu mes belles tresses.
I lost my beautiful hair
J'ai perdu beaucoup d'énergie
and lots of energy
parce que c'était utilisé aussi pour côté spirituel, pour des cérémonies, les cheveux.
because our hair were also used for our ceremonies. They were linked to our energy.
Quand j'ai vu tomber
And
mes
when I
cheveux,
saw my hair on the ground,
c'est là que j'avais plus rien.
I had nothing left.
Je fais partie parmi des survivants des pensionnats.
I'm one of those survivors of the residential schools.
J'ai été battu,
I was beaten,
violé.
raped.
Ils ont tous essayé de perdre ma culture, ma langue,
They tried to make me lose my culture and my language,
mon identité.
my identity.
C'était le plus dur moment dans ma vie.
It was the hardest time of my life.
Et j'ai réussi à sortir de là par les violences.
And I came out of that school through violence.
7 ans et demi
I was there for 7
dans la
years and a
noirceur,
half into darkness.
que j'avais besoin d'aide,
I needed help,
mais personne ne pouvait rentrer.
but nobody was allowed to come into that school,
Venir voir les enfants.
to come meet the children.
Et là, on a commencé à avoir des problèmes au niveau de la communication avec nos parents.
over the years, we started having problems communicating with our parents
parce qu'on n'avait pas le droit de parler de notre langue sale qui disait.
because we were not allowed to speak what they were calling our dirty language.
Maman,
My mom
il essayait de nous parler.
was trying to speak to us,
On faisait juste le regarder puis on pleurait.
but we
Il-
we were just trying,
Il comprenait tout, maman,
but she could understand
qu'on était vraiment dans la misère.
that we were going through misery.
Mais c'est après le pensionnat,
But after the residential school,
on a confronté un autre la réalité.
we had to confront another reality.
On a réussi de ne plus... On est sorti de là par la violence et par la justice.
We succeeded to come out of this school through violence
J'ai battu le missionnaire.
because I decided to beat a missionary man.
C'était ça mon idée, ma vision pour être libre, dans la liberté.
This was my vision so that I can finally become free of that place.
Quand je me suis rendu au palais de justice,
And we were sent to the tribunal, to a judge.
le juge il nous a posé la question, est-ce que avez-vous une raison pourquoi vous êtes ramassé ici?
And when the judge asked, "Do you know why you're here?"
Et c'est là qu'on a commencé à dire la vérité, qu'on se faisait des violés, puis aussi battus.
And for the first time, somebody could hear what happened to us, that we were going to all that abuse for so long.
Pendant 7 ans, c'était vraiment le traumatisme là, qui est gros.
So for all those years, 7 years, the trauma was becoming bigger and bigger.
On ne dormait pas.
We couldn't sleep.
On attendait des pas à quelqu'un qui arrivait, qui venait te chercher.
And at night, you could hear footsteps and you knew that one of them was coming to get you.
Ou t'entendais les enfants pleurer.
You could hear children crying every night.
J'ai vieilli dans cet endroit-là.
This is where I grew up.
Mais je suis content de sortir de là.
But I was happy to come out of that place.
Mais on ne se comprenait plus à la maison,
But
maman et papa.
once we were out, it was not possible to understand each other between us and our parents.
Et j'ai continué à chercher vraiment la vérité, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé.
And I needed to work hard in order to find the truth.
Je suis allé partout pour trouver la vérité.
I went everywhere in order to find the truth.
Puis je me suis ramassé dans une bibliothèque ici pour trouver qu'est-ce qui s'est passé vraiment.
I ended up in a library.
Et puis c'était dans un journal, c'était marqué enfin, on a fini par capturer le petit sauvage, puis on va tuer le petit Indien à l'intérieur pour devenir un bon petit blanc.
And I found in the archives articles that were talking about what happened to us when they started the residential schools. There were articles saying, "Now we will kill the Indian in the child."
J'étais très violent quand j'étais jeune.
I was very violent when I was young.
L'alcool, il m'a attrapé.
I was also caught by alcohol.
Je buvais beaucoup.
I used to drink a lot.
Et je me cachais dans des bouteilles.
I was hiding inside a bottle.
J'étais honte d'être un sauvage.
I was ashamed to be a savage.
Et j'avais honte de parler ma langue.
I was ashamed of my language.
Je voudrais remercier les aînés qui étaient là.
I would love to thank the elders who were there for me.
Eux aussi ont souffert.
They also suffered.
Il faut pas rester dans la noirceur.
We shouldn't remain into darkness.
J'ai cherché beaucoup. Qui suis-je?
I had to look a lot for who I am.
Et j'aimais pas les missionnaires.
I didn't love the missionary men,
J'aimais pas les blancs.
didn't love the white people,
Parce que j'avais beaucoup de jugement.
because I was judging a lot.
J'ai trouvé vraiment qui suis-je, le petit garçon.
I found that little boy and who I am.
Je suis un enfant de la forêt.
I found that I'm a child from the forest
Et je suis un enfant de cette terre.
and a child of the earth.
Mon père m'a aidé beaucoup.
My dad really helped me a lot.
Il y a beaucoup de symboles qui m'ont été offerts.
Many symbols were offered to me.
Un plume d'aigle,
An eagle feather,
un petit calumet symbolique
a small sacred pipe,
et aussi un petit aigle en statue
a little statue of an eagle,
et aussi un ours.
and also a bear.
Je me suis accroché beaucoup après un
I
ours
held on a lot to the bear symbol
parce que j'ai joué quand j'étais enfant.
because I used to play with them when I was a child.
La seule chose que je pouvais faire, c'est de retourner
The only thing I could do
dans la forêt.
was to go back to the forest.
Et c'est là-bas qu'est la médecine.
And that's where there is medicine.
Et c'est là aussi mon histoire.
And that's where my story is.
Les aînés m'ont emmené
The elders brought me
vers la médecine.
towards the medicine,
Ils m'ont emmené dans un sweat lodge, dans une tente de sudation.
towards the sweat lodge.
Et j'étais très agressif.
I was very angry at first.
Et quand j'ai rentré dans le sweat lodge,
When I came into the sweat lodge,
je voyais le grand-père, c'est lui qui guidait le sweat
I
lodge.
was looking at the grandfather leading the sweat lodge.
Puis il y avait aussi des hommes.
And there were also men around,
Mais j'avais peur
but I was afraid of them
parce que j'étais violé par les hommes,
because I was raped by men,
par des religieuses.
but also by nuns.
J'ai trouvé à l'intérieur le petit garçon.
But inside there, I found back the little boy.
Quand le grand-père m'a posé la question,
When the grandfather asked me,
qu'est-ce qui s'est passé?
what happened?
L'agressivité a monté, mais je l'ai dit carrément, je dis ça, c'est pas tes affaires, c'est pas ton travail.
I was so angry, I just said, it's none of your business.
Et les tambours ils ont commencé à
And
jouer.
then I heard the drumming,
Une chanson de guerrier.
a song from warriors.
C'est celui que je voulais voir, que je voulais rencontrer, un guerrier.
And this is the one I wanted to meet, a warrior.
L'aîné, le grand-père m'a dit,
The elder said,
tu sais, de tout nommer les gens qui t'ont violé.
you say that you were raped by white men or government or the church.
Il dit, tu ne devrais pas juger comme ça.
But you should not judge like you are doing right now.
Il dit, on va te dire
We'll tell you
qui t'a violé.
who raped you,
Puis, il faut que tu arrêtes de juger.
and you have to stop judging.
Il dit, les gens qui t'ont violé, ce sont des femmes malades et des hommes malades.
The people who raped you are only sick men and sick women.
À la suite de ça, j'ai travaillé dans le pardon.
And after that, I started working towards forgiveness.
Le pardon, ça n'existe pas dans ma langue.
But it's interesting because in my language, there's no such word as forgiving.
Ils m'ont toujours dit, il faut que tu acceptes.
We instead say that we have to accept.
Attends pas quelqu'un qui vienne te demander pardon, qu'est-ce qui t'est fait.
Don't wait for someone else to ask for forgiveness
Tu vas attendre longtemps.
because you can wait for a very long time.
J'ai compris
I understood
l'aîné qui m'a vraiment donné la vie, papa, maman.
that this elder and my mom and dad really gave me back my life.
Et j'ai été aidé. Mon papa, il a continué à m'aider.
And my dad kept on helping me.
Il m'a ramené vers le lac.
He brought me to the lake.
Il m'a dit, embarque dans l'eau.
He said, go into the water
Va te purifier.
and go purify yourself.
Bois de l'eau.
Drink water.
Aujourd'hui,
Today,
je bois de l'eau.
I drink water again.
Tous les matins, je bois de l'eau.
Every morning I drink water.
Je me donne à moi.
I give it to myself.
Mon papa me dit, donne-toi, toi.
Because my dad used to say, give
Tu vas-
everything to yourself
Tu vas
first
pouvoir aider les gens après.
so that you can help the others afterwards.
Alors, le lac, pour moi, dans ma langue,
In my language, when we say the word
c'est très
lake,
puissant.
it's very powerful.
Saki,
The word saki,
ikan,
and there's the word sagaigen.
qui veut dire l'amour,
Saki means love,
bassin d'amour.
and when we say sagaigen, it means lake, but we see like a basin of love.
Et c'est pour ça qu'aujourd'hui,
And this is why
je me lave
today I clean
physique
myself
et aussi mental.
physically and mentally.
Aujourd'hui, je me regarde
I look at myself
et je me dis, je ne serai plus jamais victime de cette histoire-là.
and I can tell that I will never be a victim anymore
Parce
of
que
this
j'ai
story
arrêté plein de choses.
because I accepted many
J'ai
things.
arrêté de juger.
I stopped judging
Et puis je m'aime.
and I love myself
Et je vous aime aussi.
and I love you too.
Ne restez pas dans la colère.
Don't remain into anger.
Ne restez pas noirceur.
Don't remain into darkness.
C'est tellement beau, la vie. est
Life
belle, la vie.
is so beautiful.
La forêt, les arbres, les montagnes, les lacs et les rivières.
Forests,
Les
trees,
animaux.
mountains, lakes, river, animals.
Aujourd'hui, je peux dire, je suis un arbre aujourd'hui.
Today I can say I'm a tree,
Droite,
standing up straight
avec la fierté.
with pride.
Je vous transmets cette
And I transmit to you
médecine-là, des paroles, la vie.
this medicine of words and life.
Et je vous aime.
And I love you.
Miigwech.
Thank you.
Dominique, thank you so much. Marie-Josee, thank you for sharing. It speaks so beautifully to the journey each of us travel through in this thing we call a life. I'm just wondering if there are others who would like to share how you, like Dominique, found a way to stop self-administering poison.
I want to say that I really can relate deeply to what our beloved brother is sharing with us. This, when I was at the University of Lethbridge, when this whole thing began, we did a film called Healing the Hurts, which opened up the entire residential school situation in Canada. So I had a chance to the honor of being with thousands of these relatives. And as well was there when just after they uncovered that 231 unmarked graves at Shuswap, Little Shuswap. And the thing is so amazing is that despite all these incredible, when you really get down into it, these are just horrific things that happened. And by the way, I believe only abused people, only colonized people. So that same thing that we experienced had been experienced before. But I can tell you firsthand from listening and hearing and feeling all these relatives. I mean, things you just could not believe. But then to see the tremendous emergence that's happening despite, in fact, maybe even because of having to go so deep down inside your being till you find the spirit which animates us from the very beginning. And you see this incredible spiritual awakening happening. And just, I'm so thankful to hear my dear brother share. You know, we've known each other for many, many, many years, but I've never heard him share this depth. And I really appreciate it, brother, what it's taken to get this far. You know, we went out and worked many places with boarding school survivors, but I didn't know your story. So thank you so much. And that's what I want to say is that if we can just understand that we all, as a human family, all of us have this, but we block it off. We don't feel it. We don't get down into it. And my dad told me this. He said, son, if you can feel it, you can heal it. If you can feel it, you can heal it. If you can talk about it, you can understand it. If you can feel it, you can heal it. But we had to feel it. That's why they say the longest road in the world is from here, to our heart, to get right down in our guts and our bottom of our souls and be able to feel what other people feel. You know, while we've been sitting here, they say 7 children have died from starvation, preventable disease, just while we're sitting here. Anyway, that's enough to say, but I just want to say that for myself, it's prayer. It's the prophecies. It's knowing without question that we are one human family and we are emerging into a new planetary civilization, whether we understand it yet or not. We are in a parabolic curve, literally. We're now just going straight up. Who knows what the great mystery has in store for us? Who knows?
Yeah, thank you, Phil. And I appreciate the other dimension that you bring into this conversation about hurt people. That each of the perpetrators suffer their own moral injury.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Anita.
Thank you. I'd like to respond to the question. There are so many ways. That's part of the abundance of life that can help us through. So there is no one way. That's the beauty of spirit and of all our relatives. However, I'd like to share with people in more of a ceremonial way something that's helped me a lot. And I'm a messenger of the eaglehood prophecy. And I've taken that all over the world, and sometimes with groups of 8,000 and sometimes with 2. And what I have found coming back as I've used it in my own life, it's been very helpful. I'm not sharing this to fix it, but for offering another way to go forward, if I may. So this prophecy is not like many of our Indigenous prophecies that are quite old and quite, on target and everything. This one came about in 1994, where Mohican elder Don Coyas, as he slept, a vision came where there was a light and it was coming down and touched his forehead as he slept. And then in the light, he could see a tree, and the tree kept turning. As it turned to its different seasons. And as it got to the fall, the leaves fell, but then winter, not only did it seem bare, but the limbs fell off. And then the trunk was left and it formed a hoop. And he heard, gather the elders from around the world. It's time. It's time. Because the human beings have forgotten. And so he took that to elders, as we often do in elder council, and they said, no, that just wasn't a dream, that was a vision. And so you must follow it. And so he knew in that vision, there was this, as the circle came, there were all these eagle feathers hanging down from it. But he put out the call. I won't get into the story of how you get 100 eagle feathers, but he put out the call, and 27 elders responded from all over the world. From Africa, from Europe, from the Americas, from Asia. These 27 elders came to Turtle Mountain, Chippewa. And for a long weekend, they prayed and sang all, in their own languages. They meditated, danced. And then on the last day, this hoop that they had created with 100 eagle feathers, and it had the 4 different colors wrapped around what would have been the tree trunk. And at that point, they had had a fire all the time, but they heard it's time. And so they put these 4 gifts in there from Spirit for all humankind. And the promise from Spirit was, if you use these gifts, integrate in their life, so not just once, not just twice, they become part of who you are, you will remember. You will remember how to create harmony and balance in your own life, in your relationship with others, human beings, nature, the universe. And so with that, I'd like you to, you don't have to close your eyes, you can lower them if you wish, and also I'm going to invite you can, as you get each gift, you can actually put it with your hands reached out and then put it into your heart. So the first gift that Spirit told the elders to put into the hoop is the gift of the power to forgive the unforgivable. The gift of the power to forgive the unforgivable. Take your hands out, cup them, and bring it into your heart. And breathe that in. The power to forgive the unforgivable. And as you do that, some of you may be thinking about, oh yeah, I forgot that. And some are like, oh, I don't know if I can forget that. But no, this gift is yours, is all of ours. The power to forgive the unforgivable. Breathe that in and breathe that out. And now take your hands out again in front of you. And the second gift, Spirit told them to put into the hoop to help human beings remember how to create harmony and balance, is the gift of the power of healing. The gift of the power of healing. Now bring that, if you wish, into your ceremonial part of your heart. And you all know where that is. Healing. What a gift. What a gift. And it belongs to each of us. Each of us. Just breathe that in, and you're probably thinking maybe just feeling that throughout every cell in your body and knowing the things in gratitude for what is healed and wondering what also needs to be healed. But know that you have that power, the power of the gift of healing. Breathe it in, breathe it out, and then you can take your hands out in front of you in a cup. The third gift Spirit told the elders to put into the hoop is the gift of the power of unity. The gift of the power of unity. Take your hands and put that into the ceremonial part of your heart. The gift of the power of unity. And you may be seeing it's this gift of unity. You know it's yours. And you might be seeing your family, your chosen family, biological family. You might be seeing trees and water, the ocean, beautiful birds and dogs, everything, and even creepy crawlers and all of it in the sky. And elders, we don't necessarily tell you what to do, but I would suggest if in this unity you do not see yourself, consider including that in there. Are we in alignment with our spiritual, mental, emotional, physical being? And know that we, each of you, have this gift, the gift of the power of unity. Breathe that in and out and extend your hands out forward. And the fourth gift, Spirit said, elders, put this into the hoop for all human beings. The gift of the power of hope. Hope in action. Bring that gift of the power of hope, hope in action, into the ceremonial part of your heart. And breathe it in and breathe it out. Hope. Hope is an energy source. And it can't be taken away. We can give it away. even the worst circumstances, it can't be taken away because it's that part of your sacredness. It's there. And we can choose it and dream, daydream, night dream, visions. Call it in at this time. It is so needed. This future, this thriving future for not only for us and all of our relatives, nature and the cosmos, also for 7 generations forward. For 7 generations before us, they gave us that as well. We are a dream. Sometimes a dream out of real hardship, and sometimes a dream out of real joy. But know that this gift of hope, hope in action, is yours. Breathe it in and breathe it out. And you can keep your hands there or you can lower them. And you can open your eyes. And Spirit said, as the fire was dying down, and the elders began to share that they were so eager to take this back to their different communities. And what they then heard with what was coals rose again in fire and said, that's good. But this is for all humanity, all human beings, all. And so with that, I share that with you from Spirit and from those wonderful 27 elders who traveled far to receive from Spirit a way. And may we just open our hearts, that ceremonial part, to receive these, but also all the other offerings from the water and from the trees, from all the people that we know and why we're here in this forum. Just breathe it all in. And when you're ready, remembering the gift of the power to forgive the unforgivable, the gift of the power of healing, the gift of the power of unity, and the gift of the power of hope in action. Spirit promise, you will remember how to be in harmony and balance with yourself, with other people, with nature, with the cosmos. Gratitude to be alive and to be here with all of you.
Thank you, Anita. Beautiful gift. Thank you. Marie Josee, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little something after listening to Grandfather's story. I heard a beautiful sentence from a wise person in France once. He was saying, stop wanting to understand in order to accept. Accept first, and then you will understand. And that is such a mystery. It's the mystery of our lives. And what I can say, because I know Grandfather for so long now, we've been together for 30 years. What I can say is that big mystery is that our main suffering, our biggest suffering moments, if we turn them around, they can become our biggest strength. And I can tell you that during all those years, I've seen him telling his story and helping so many people, like thousands of people who are listening to his life journey and thinking, if he was able to forgive, then I can do it. And I can say that this is his strength now, and this is the mystery. But the big teaching of that is, if we try to explain, like Anita was saying, if we understand that we can forgive the unforgivable, it only can come from that place within, that wisdom that we all have, that place within ourselves that is bigger than ourselves, then everything is possible. And earlier I was talking about the direction west, which is the direction for us that teaches us about acceptance. And for me now, I consider it as a portal. When you open that door, everything becomes possible.
Tout le monde revient vers toi quand tu as réussi à pardonner.
Everybody comes back to you when you are able to forgive, when you succeed in forgiving.
J'ai eu la médecine dans le Sweat Lodge et je suis encore comme enseignant
I
dans le Sweat
received
Lodge.
my healing through the Sweat Lodge, and nowadays I teach through the Sweat Lodge.
Qui sont là, c'est tous les peuples dans le monde entier.
And who is within? It's all the peoples around the world.
J'ai parlé de l'Église catholique, il y a des prêtres dans
I have
Moderator.
Catholic priests now that come to my
Tout
Sweat
le monde
Lodge.
sont là.
Everybody can come and is welcome.
Puis on va réussir,
And
on
we'll
a
be
une
able,
planète.
we'll succeed. We have only one planet.
Puis notre vision à tous, je crois, c'est d'avoir une famille dans cette
And
planète-là.
I think we have
Juste une
this
famille.
vision of forming just one family together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa, you had your hand up. I don't know if you still had a contribution.
It's been said, but I want to echo and honor the feeling of the ancestors who are here. That they worked so hard for us to be here, and that you carried the torch. And there are 7 more, at least, to come.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging that. Jim, your computer's on mute.
I just wanted to thank you, Dominique and Anita, for these lessons. They're so important now here in the United States, where we're so divided. There's so much hate and there's so much fear, and forgiveness of the unforgivable is so difficult. And as are the other lessons. But I'm so grateful to you for bringing them to us, and they reinforce the importance in all the work I do with trauma here in the United States and everywhere. So thank you. And I look forward to many more connections with you and to learning more. And I feel so important, Tom, what you and Jim Garrison are doing to bring these lessons out into the world, so that it's whatever I can do to help do that, I want to do. So thank you.
And thank you, Jim. Father Josh.
Thank you, Tim. And I'll be very short. Just 2 things I wanted to share, and thank the entire group, beginning you and Jim and everyone. I thought of Pope Francis, how he would listen to people, especially the most vulnerable, the poor, the suffering. And I'm sure all of us panelists and those all those who are taking part, one thing we are learning is that we need to listen, sit at the feet of people and listen. And I mentioned Pope Francis because he also told about the Amazon. And 2019, for the first time, Pope Francis got the indigenous leaders, tens and tens of them, to the Vatican for over a month. And since they came to Rome, in a way, the entire world's attention was on that meeting, the Synod on the Amazon. And I think that's one thing we need to, I think that's the path, sit at the feet of people, listen, empathetic, but also Alex mentioned about Bhutan. And I think out as a world, we look for big things, and it's a cult of that. I think the salvation will come from below when we are able to sit and listen. The second thing I want to share is one of hope. Again, the image of Saint Francis of Assisi came to my mind, and I said next year will be the 800th anniversary of his death, and this year is the 800th anniversary of the Canticle of the Creatures. Laudato Si, praise be to God for Brother Sun, Sister Moon, Sister Water. All those elements came in our conversation today. But what I want to highlight today of that canticle is that St. Francis wrote that canticle in a moment of great difficulty. I mean, he had almost become blind. They had treated, he had lost his eyesight, and they had treated him with hot iron, and there was a lot of, swelling. And for nearly 40 days, he was in a hut with that pain. He was blind. He was thrown out of the order. They thought that he was too radical. So he was pushed out of the order that he founded. And his biographer writes that rats were everywhere. He couldn't sleep at night. He couldn't eat anything. Rats were all over him. And after 40 days, he gets up with a great joy and sings the Canticle of the Creatures. And listening to Dominique and Philip and all of us, all this experience, what came to my mind was that in the moment of deepest sorrow, in the moment of great difficulty, God gives us joy. I think we are invited to go out and sing with creation for Brother Sun, Sister Moon, for the community of each other, the family that we are. So I really want to share this element of hope that precisely in the moment of sorrow, real joy, deep joy can swell up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Father Josh. So I'll invite you all to take yourself off mute and just be with each other and share what's arising in you. I appreciate that you were diligently raising your virtual hands, but I would just invite you to be in dialogue and conversation with each other and what's arising in you in this moment.
Well, I'm really thankful to be alive. And then I see my auntie, she's hanging in there stronger than ever. I got more hope. And see Dominique, you're still hanging in there. And to see Father, thank you so much for your good words. And to Tom, a pleasure to meet you. And a pleasure to meet you. So I just want to say I'm ready to go. Got fresh horses ready to ride. And Lisa, also a pleasure to meet you as well.
I think that's the overwhelming thing for me is just, I know there's lots of facts to the contrary in terms of challenges in that. And yet at the same time, there's strength. And it comes from seeing all of you and seeing ancestors that are here, and not just the two-legged, it's the other ancestors, and know that we do nothing alone. So this can be done. Nothing is done alone. I'm not breathing now. So I'm grateful to the plant relatives who take my carbon and give me, I mean, just on and on. So I'm feeling like you, Brother Phil, just grateful to be alive at this time, just so grateful and thankful to all of you for your sharing and prayers and what you're contributing in life. Thank you.
I feel honored and blessed to be in this community together. And as Anita said, no one can take away our hope. As Dominique, you helped me see, no one can ever take away our capacity to live in the forest.
Ma prochaine, pour moi, c'est demain que je vais être avec les survivants.
Tomorrow I'll be with people who survived the residential school system. We had a ceremony.
C'est sûr que je vais parler
And for sure,
de ce qui s'est passé aujourd'hui.
I will talk about what happened here today.
C'est ça une famille.
This is what it is, a family.
Et de toujours rester dans la mémoire des anciens.
And always keep the connection with the memory of the ancestors.
Chaque matin, je bois 4 verres d'eau. pour moi.
Each morning I drink a glass of water with 4 sips.
La première gorgée, je remercie maman qui m'a apporté pendant 9 mois dans son ventre.
And when I take the first sip, I thank my mother who carried me for 9 months in her womb.
Et la deuxième gorgée que je demande au Créateur, c'est de continuer à m'aider à me respecter pour que je puisse respecter les autres.
And when I take the second sip, I think, and I ask Creator to help me respecting myself in order to be able to respect the others.
Et la troisième, c'est accepter ce qui s'est passé en arrière de moi.
The third one is to help me accept everything from my past.
Puis ma quatrième gorgée, je voudrais être libre à l'intérieur de moi.
And the last sip is in order to feel the inner freedom.
N'oubliez pas la rivière.
Never forget the river.
La rivière coule régulièrement.
The river flows
Il n'y a pas d'obstacle.
with no obstacles.
Même s'il y a des barrages, il passe par-dessus.
Even though there are dams, the river can go over it.
Soyons la rivière aussi
Let's
chaque
be
jour.
like a river every day.
Miigwech.
Unfortunately, Alex was only able to be with us for the first 2 hours, but I want to call in the work he's been doing in Bhutan over the last 4 years with colleagues and representatives from the Bhutanese government. We've been in conversation over the last 6 months as we think about how do we hospice modernity and what do we replace it with? And as Alex briefly shared, the work that's going on there is tokenizing human values of wisdom, of love, of compassion, of community that all contribute to gross national happiness in Bhutan. And they made the conscious decision a number of years ago to shift from this Western notion of gross domestic product is the metric for their society, for their country, to gross national happiness. And so the strategic initiative we'll be launching as part of the forum this year is to offer the work that all of you are talking about of helping with acknowledgement, helping with apology, helping with trauma healing, helping with forgiveness, compassion, through certification programs, through degree programs, trainings, offerings, etc., to help each of us as human beings work through our own trauma, our own process of healing, and to work over the next 6 years to celebrate the work that's happening in Bhutan and create opportunities for it to be used in other parts of the world, and see if other societies, other countries can adopt a new model for what it means to be human, what it means to coexist on this planet. And we're incredibly excited knowing that we can't heal the world if we don't heal ourselves. And I'm just immensely grateful for each of you to be here and to share the journeys that you've traveled, the wisdom that you bring with you and carry with you. And look forward to collaborating with each of you over the next 6 years in finding ways to build on the work that you've been doing for many decades and find new ways and new opportunities to bring that to the world. I've been tracking the Q&A in this Zoom as well as monitoring the chat throughout our time together over the last couple of hours. And so I just want to invite in maybe the next 15 minutes or so to invite our audience from around the world if they've got questions that they would like to bring into this conversation as part of our as we've transitioned into the Forum Unplugged portion of our day. And so if folks want to pose a question in the Q&A or in the chat, I'll be happy to bring it into our conversation. I don't know if each of you have been following the chat, but people have been deeply moved by our time together this morning. While we're waiting, I'll invite each of you if you've got other things to share. Henrietta, you took yourself off mute at one point. I'm wondering if there's something you'd like to share.
I want to thank all of the panelists, especially you and Anita and my nephew Phil and these new relatives whose faces I've gotten to see. I just want to say a sentence or two in terms of the prayer, the offering that I gave to begin this meeting. I asked that grandfather, grandmother, bless each one of you with good health, long life, wonderful minds, and continued commitment to maintain this sacred home of ours, and that we always remember that we walk in the footsteps of all of our grandparents, and that our footsteps are going to be followed by all those who await their time to walk with you. I pray for you long life and all things good. And I certainly appreciate your invitation to participate with you today. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Anita. And thank you, my brothers, sisters, and my nephew sitting there. I love all of you.
Since I'm here, I just want to say this one part that Crowfoot said, and I can tell you, 81 winters, I tell you, it goes so fast. I look at the mirror and say, how'd this happen? But he said this so beautifully. He said, life's like the breath of a buffalo on a cold day, or a firefly on a warm summer night, or the shadows vanishing before the setting sun. My dad always used to say to me, son, when the young people stop singing the old songs and there are no more visions of greatness, there is no more power. So as your vision is, so shall your power be. So as your faith is, so shall your success be. Aho.
Thank you, Phil, for that. I just wanted to add that the process of healing trauma, if it is a full and complete process, yields such grace and such hope. I was recently online with 70 members of our Gaza team, and with all of they have suffered, that the drawings for what they hope for in the future, all the drawings were of peace and flourishing, and none were of revenge. And nobody coached them, nobody said, don't say this, don't say that. But the natural process of healing, of coming back through their own trauma and helping other people to heal, seemed to use yield this incredible generosity of spirit. And it was so beautiful to see. And it's something I've seen elsewhere, just so dramatic here in this particular setting.
On travaille, on vit avec des prophéties que les ancêtres nous ont laissés.
That makes us think about our prophecies that were left by our ancestors.
Quand on regarde les ceintures wampum, le monde entier sont inclus à l'intérieur dans la ceinture wampum.
So our prophecies are kept within sacred objects called wampum bells.
Ça a été dit à la cinquième feu.
And there's this prophecy, I told you about the prophecy of the seven fires. And with the fifth fire, it was foretold that
qu'il y aurait tout un mouvement côté humain.
That there would be a shift within the human mind.
Et que tout le monde il va reprendre chaque pas sur la terre maman.
And that the people would come back to the footsteps of our ancestors on Mother Earth.
Et qu'on marcherait tous ensemble.
And that we would start walking all together.
Les pieds nus, marcher les pieds nus sur la terre sacrée.
Barefoot on sacred earth.
Il parle aussi, c'est la raison pourquoi j'ai sorti le calumet.
And this is the reason why I'm holding this sacred pipe.
Vous êtes inclus là-dedans aussi.
You see that you're all included in it.
Je suis porteur de calumet et je respecte tout le monde dans le monde entier.
And this pipe is just to remind us that I respect everyone in the world.
Cette partie-là, c'est
This
côté
part
féminin.
is the feminine part.
Et l'autre côté, c'est masculin.
And this other part is the masculine part.
Et quand on les met
And
ensemble,
when we join them together,
on demande au Grand Esprit d'équilibrer la vie pour tout le monde.
we ask the Great Spirit to help finding balance back again.
Je vais fumer demain matin mon
And
calumet
tomorrow I will smoke my sacred pipe
pour tous
for you
nous
all,
ici.
for us all here.
Vous êtes imprimés maintenant dans mon
You
calumet.
are printed now in my sacred pipe.
Vos paroles,
Your words,
vos sourires.
your smiles. Thank you. I love you, he says.
Yeah, thank you, Dominique. Father Josh, I'm wondering if you could speak to confession and acknowledgement.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom. I just finished, since I feel very much part of the family, I would like to, share with you good news that I just finished a book on ecological sins. The plan is to do, maybe if God gives me energy and inspiration, 3 books: ecological sin, ecological confession, and ecological virtues. So the ecological sin is about, we need to acknowledge our sins. We need to be honest, confess, and the metaphysics I adopted in this book is sin is the rupture of relationships. Because traditionally we have understood sin as something between me and my God. Maybe in the last few decades, we also spoke about eco-justice, so sin is structural sins and sins against one another. But I think the circle is not complete unless we bring creation into it. So I define ecological sin as the rupture of relationships with Mother Earth, with the rest of the community of creation, among ourselves, including future generations and all. And then with the Creator. And I don't want to take too much time. I speak of 7 ecological sins. The first is hubris, our pride, that we think we are not related, we are superior, we are above everything else. And in the Bible, the sin of Adam is a mythological explanation, begins when human beings want to be totally autonomous, are not connected. So we need to acknowledge our arrogance, our pride, and we are seeing it around the world in our political leaders, in our economic systems, this arrogance to dominate everything. Then the next 6 sins are against the 3, we call them theological virtues of love, faith, and hope. Against love is carelessness. We don't take care of God's creation. In the Bible, we say, Genesis 2:15, keep and cultivate this garden. That's the first commandment we have received, and we are not really caring for God's creation. But it's also indifference. It's another form of carelessness, Not really things are wasted. People are considered waste in our society today. Very unfortunate. And I'm sorry if I'm speaking in very biblical terms. In Genesis chapter 4, when Cain has killed his brother Abel, God asks him, Cain, where is your brother? Your brother. And Cain replies, am I the keeper of my brother? Why should I bother? And the word keeping was the same that God told Adam and Eve to keep the garden. So we are not keeping the garden. We are not keeping our own sisters and brothers. The next two sins are desecration. We don't see the world as creation. And the fourth sin is greed. Fifth sin is greed. That when we desecrate everything, things can only be seen in terms of utility, consumption, profit. And the last two sins are against hope, that we have lost joy. We don't, everything in creation sings. The heavens sing, birds sing, trees sing, flowers sing. But, everyone sings. But then we have become so morose, we don't sing anymore. And hopelessness, that in believers we believe that everything came from God, everything will return to God. But our Jewish brothers celebrate the Sabbath. It's an anticipation of everything's entire reality's return to God. And ours is a time we have the sin of hopelessness. So Tom, I really responded to your question. And I end with ecological conversion, where we acknowledge our sins, and then we repent, and then we live by ecological virtues. I was so happy Lisa mentioned at the beginning when she spoke that the response is to cultivate virtues and be virtuous. That's another book I'll speak later. But I think it's so important to have the humility like Buddha. We are talking about ecological crisis, so many crises, but unless we get to the deeper root causes, which is our sinful behavior, we will not. It's like we have cancer, but it's not sufficient to take paracetamol or just try to cure the fever and the symptoms. We need to get deeper, acknowledge the root causes, and be honest, confess them, and respond to these sins through virtues. So, Tom, thank you.
Thank you, Father Josh. The next question is, and I'll open it up to any of you who feel like you'd like to respond. How do we deal with inherited trauma? Anita?
I'll say a few things. I have found a lot of different methods that started getting at it. Going to a psychologist as a teen and then sweats and various things. And I think part of the thing is dealing with it is that I think I dealt most with it when my heart was open. It was as long as I was resisting using my mind. That's really what it was. It was hard. And there is a process that hopefully the book comes out at the end of next year. I'm looking for a publisher now. And it's called RIM. It's regenerating memory. And it's a process a woman created back in 2000, I don't know, 2, 5, something like that. I've been studying with her since 2009. And I began with homeless people because every certified you worked with different people. I had 50. And just about every single one of them was of the generation before. But this process really honored, and why I was so drawn to it, it has many features that are analogous to Indigenous ways. and honoring ancestors. So to heal, to work on that intergenerational trauma is actually to call on them to be present, to be healed. And there's processes to do that. I'm not trying to say this process is the only, I'll just say there was research recently done, I know some of you may be interested in this, by the University of Colorado on this method that we've been using. There was a group of nurses that we were working with. And so they started, MRIs, all different kinds of testing and stuff. And what they came out with their report is they said, what you are doing has the same impact as doing psilocybin treatment, just as effective and as quickly. And I think it speaks of the power we have, even when we think we're broken, which I see as opened up, that power is there that comes to us by virtue of being. And so I'm excited about learning from all of you the different processes used. I'm very curious about all of them, but I'm very, very excited, Tom, and all of you, for this book to get out, because people don't need to suffer a long time. We are meant to be, as a Nahuatl person, I was always taught joy and responsibility is part of being a whole human being. And sometimes that responsibility is very hard, but sometimes the responsibility is also joyful. Like I love keeping those trees where I live and the land clean and honoring the water. And I think most of us do if we remember who we really are. So thank you for letting me share that. And it's called Regenerating Memory. And yeah.
Thank you, Anita.
Mhm.
Read Josee.
Yes.
I was gonna going.
I think for intergenerational trauma, it's the same thing as healing your own trauma. And one thing that grandfather didn't mention is one sentence that he keeps repeating.
Pour moi, c'est il faut vivre avec le traumatisme.
We have to live with our trauma.
Et chaque jour, je me sens comme un guerrier pour confronter aujourd'hui.
And each time I feel like I'm a warrior able to confront what happened to me.
Je retourne d'où je viens pour
I come
commencer,
back to where I come from,
dans la forêt.
which is the forest.
Je vis dans la
I
forêt.
live in the forest.
Puis je vois mon histoire en arrière, la
And
fameuse histoire de passionnat.
I see my story behind me, the story of the residential school.
Il y a quelque chose que tout le monde a oublié, c'est dire miigwech, merci.
Maybe
Mhm.
before,
Continue, c'est ça,
okay.
ouais.
One thing that is important to say is that we forget to say thank you every morning.
La raison pourquoi j'ai dit merci, je remercie le passionnat
The reason why I say that is that now I can thank the residential
de
school
de voir clair aujourd'hui
because I can see clearly nowadays.
et que ça est devenu tout ce qui est négatif et devient positif.
Everything that was negative became positive.
Je vis plus dans la misère.
I don't live through misery
Je
anymore.
comprends maintenant quand les jeunes ils viennent me voir qu'un de survivants.
I understand now the people who come to me with the same kind of wounds.
Avant, on sentait tout seul.
Before, I used to feel alone.
Mais là, maintenant, aujourd'hui, c'est différent.
But today, it's different.
Je ne veux plus vivre négativement de quoi qu'il m'arrive.
I don't want to live negatively, whatever happens.
J'ai accepté. Combien de fois je me suis aligné direction ouest dans l'acceptation?
I don't know how many times I aligned myself towards the west into acceptance.
Et j'apprécie tout ce qui se passe dans ma vie.
And I appreciate everything that happens in my life.
Alors, oui, ça fait mal des fois
Yes,
parce
it
qu'il
hurts.
y a beaucoup de choses qui reviennent.
Because you have all those memories coming back.
Une chose que je me suis jamais dit que je suis guéri.
But one thing I understood is I don't seek healing anymore.
Je connais pas la guérison.
I don't know healing.
Et pour moi, c'est une cicatrice qui est là
What
pour
I
à
think
vie.
now is that I have a scar for the rest of my life,
Et c'est moi qui devrais mettre du velours à
and
l'intérieur
I
dessus.
accept that I have to put velvet on my scar every day
Pour que ça ouvre.
so that it doesn't open.
Alors, c'est tous ces trucs-là que des fois qui viennent me chercher.
So often those things come back to me,
La dernière chose, c'est quand ils ont retrouvé les enfants dans l'arrière de pensionnat.
like when they found the bodies of the children in the backyards of the residential schools.
J'ai tombé
I fell.
à l'âge de 7 ans et demi,
It was like if I was 7 years old again.
2 mois sans toucher mon calumet,
And for 2 months, I didn't touch my sacred pipe.
2 mois pas capable d'enseigner.
2 months without being able to teach.
Je me suis collé à côté de ma femme.
I stuck to my wife.
C'est grâce à elle qui m'a ramené à la
And
surface.
thanks to her, I came back to the surface.
Et ça, je prévois maintenant que je ne devrais pas baisser mes bras. Je dois vivre comme un castor chez nous, qu'on dit,
I thought
travaillant.
I must learn to live like a beaver, always work hard and resilient. But the thing I wanted you to add is that often grandfather says that there's nothing that is negative, it's just teachings. And the teachings come from the moment when you don't try to find rational explanations to things that are just irrational. You have to open the door, as Anita was saying, you open your heart. And very often people resist the West, as we say in our philosophy, they resist this passage between letting go and healing. But very often you can ask this question to yourself, because people say, I cannot forgive, I cannot accept. But then you can ask yourself, is it because you don't want to forgive or you don't want to accept? And then that helps you dig further down and find the reason why you still resist. Because the minute you stop resisting, then you trust that inner wisdom that we all have, and then things that are completely meaningless become meaningful and transformative. So yeah, this is what we wanted to say.
C'est beau.
Yes.
Thank you. Jim?
Yes, thank you so much for that teaching. In our work, a couple of things have been very helpful for dealing with intergenerational trauma. In our small groups, we construct genograms, 3 or 4 generational maps of our family. And we bring to that genogram, with all humility, the difficulties we have, the challenges, the problems, including intergenerational trauma. And we ask people to sit and in a meditative state to look at the genogram and see where the repair, the healing might be in that genogram. And if it's not in the genogram of the biological family, are there other forces that can contribute to the healing? And it seems to be very helpful. We've seen it be very helpful with people. The other thing I want to say, which was mentioned earlier, which Anita mentioned, is I've also seen sacred medicines like psilocybin, mushrooms, be very helpful. And I've experienced that myself with healing of intergenerational trauma. So I want to offer those as 2 complementary possibilities to everything else that we've been hearing as ways to work with intergenerational trauma. I think it's a really good question, and I appreciate everyone's answers.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. And there's been a number of questions in the Q&A around institutional perpetrators of trauma. And it's something I personally struggle with. Here in the United States, over the last 80 years, we've overthrown 80 governments. We have been in perpetual war since World War II. As grandmother Henrietta talked about, the people arriving from the East, and what our country, the United States, has done to perpetuate suffering around the world. And I find it a struggle for me personally, as an American citizen, as a taxpayer, that our government on our behalf has perpetuated so much suffering unnecessarily around the world, and how to work with that energy. I don't have an answer to that question. It's been an inquiry of mine for a number of decades now. It's it's a different kind of trauma that each of us experience around the world. Phil, as we close, I see you've got your hand up. Do you have any closing comments?
Well, I would just say that when somebody is being abused, this is going back, Tom, to the only abuse people, only colonize people, only hurt people. When somebody is being abused, two patterns are installed. One of that is being abuser, and one of that is being abused. And of course, with intergenerational trauma, we have to understand, that only hurt people are people that hurt us hurt themselves, or they wouldn't hurt us. At the same time, we have to look inside, because as we were traumatized and hurt, we also received what it was to be the oppressor. And so when we have the power and this thing happens, we can become the oppressor if we don't watch out. It's two sides of one coin. I think the other side of it we need to look at is a lateral violence or internalized oppression, of how when you're abused and you believe, let's say that if you're white, you're right, and you believe that, then anybody that's not white, then you end up taking out your pain on one another, lateral violence or internalized oppression. I think these are important to understand. I think the last thing I would say is that to understand that the tears are not the pain. The tears are released from the pain. The shaking, the trembling is not the fear, it's a release from the fear. That all these incredible, beautiful emotions we've given, we need to be able to open our heart, as our sister shared with us, and let those feelings, come through. So again, that only abused people abuse people. That's not our nature. We're not born that way. We learn it. We're not, I believe we're born pure, beautiful beings, sacred beings, holy beings. And what we've done to one another, we've learned it. And it can be, if it can be learned, it can be unlearned. And I think this was the whole process going on with decolonization, to unlearn these behaviors that don't allow us to be a human being.
Yeah, thank you, Phil. I want to thank you all for just the extraordinary gift that each of you are to this conversation, to the work you do, to all of the people that you touch in your lives. It's just an honor and a gift to me personally to know you, and so grateful you accepted the invitation to be with us this morning. We have had with us this week our poet laureate, Robert Arnold, and just delighted to have Robert with us back again today. I was in conversation with him this morning. He's been struggling with his voice. Members of his family have been sick. So as a backup, he created a video. So Robert, we invite you in to share your essay and reading for today as we close out this morning. And then after Robert's reading, we've invited Phil to do a blessing to close out our plenary session.
The return does not begin with answers. It begins with remembering that we are not lost. We're disoriented. For centuries, human beings have mistaken movement for direction, growth for health, and dominance for strength. We built systems that ran fast and forgot to ask where they are going. We mistook extraction for success and called the wreckage progress. And when the ground beneath us began to give way, we told ourselves that speed would save us. And it won't. What will save us is not invention alone, but memory, not regression, but reorientation. The future does not require us to abandon everything we've built. It requires us to remember what we were building for. Philosophy, when it matters, has always been about orientation. How to live, how to belong, how to act without destroying what makes action possible. Aristotle called it pronesis, a practical wisdom, and capacity to choose well in context. Not abstract virtue, but lived discernment. The good life was never about accumulation, it was about balance. Indigenous philosophies understood this intuitively. The future was not an abstraction, it was present in every decision. Among the Haudenosaunee, the seventh generation principle was not symbolic, it was governance. To act without regard for those yet born was to fail in responsibility to those living now. This is the wisdom we must recover. Our economic systems are not laws of nature, they are stories we agreed to believe. And like all stories, they can be rewritten. Extractive economies treat labor, land, and life as inputs. Regenerative economies treat them as relationships. Growth is redefined not as endless expansion, but as increasing resilience, health, and continuity. This shift is not theoretical, it is already happening in soil. Regenerative agriculture restores carbon, increases biodiversity, stabilizes yields, and rebuilds rural communities. It works not by forcing compliance from the land, but by cooperating with it. Cover crops protect soil, diversity strengthens systems, time is treated as an ally, not an enemy. The lesson is larger than farming. When we are designing systems that honor limits, abundance follows. When we design systems that deny limits, collapse accelerates. Community follows that same pattern. Localism is not isolation, it is accountability. Cooperative stewardship replaces extraction with shared responsibility. When people can see the consequences of their actions, care re-enters decision-making almost automatically. Education must reflect this shift. We have trained generations to compete in systems that cannot sustain them. We taught children how to win before teaching them how to belong. Ecology should not be a chapter in a textbook. It should be the framework through which all learning is understood. Ethics is not an elective. Empathy is not a personality trait. They are survival skills. A child who understands interdependence will not need to be convinced that cruelty carries a cost. A student who learns systems will recognize that injustice destabilizes everything it touches. Technology, too, must be reclaimed. Tools are not neutral. They shape attention, behavior, and values. Technology becomes tyrant when it replaces presence, erodes patience, and monetizes distraction. But when used with intention, it can restore connection rather than sever it. Digital minimalism is not a rejection. It's a boundary. It is remembering that attention to finite and therefore sacred. Mindful innovation asks not only can we, but should we, and at what cost? Philosophers from Ivan Illich to Hannah Arendt warned that systems designed without human scale produce alienation. Power concentrates, responsibility diffuses, meaning evaporates, and remedy is not nostalgia, it's human scale design. Policy is where moral imagination becomes real. Laws encode values, whether we admit it or not. Incentives shape behavior more effectively than slogans. A society that remembers it's alive designs policies that protects commons, regenerates resources, and safeguard the vulnerable. And it's not sentimental, but it's practical. Clean water prevents conflict. Healthy soil prevents famine. Strong communities prevent extremism. When people feel rooted, they are less susceptible to fear. And when they feel disposable, cruelty becomes contagious. Healing is not passive. It requires courage, always. It requires us to slow down in culture addicted to speed, to choose care in systems designed for extraction, to speak of belonging in a language trained to sneer at it, to insist that meaning matters even when the markets scoff at it. This is where spirituality re-enters public life, not as doctrine, but as grounding. Spiritual traditions across the world understood that humility was not self-erasure. It was accurate self-assessment. We are powerful, yes, but not separate. Capable, yes, but not invulnerable. Free, yes, but not unbound. To kneel before something larger than oneself was never about submission. It's about perspective. Because healing begins when we accept that limits are not enemies. They are teachers. Death gives life urgency. Seasons give labor rhythm. Boundaries give freedom shape. The return we are called to make is not to the forest floor, but to the human heart, to remember that we belong to one another and to the living world that makes all belonging possible. So it's not a call to purity. It's a call to participation, to plant where we can, to mend what is within reach, to tell truer stories, to design systems that do not require denial to function. Hope does not arrive as certainty. It arises as commitment to act as if the future matters, to live as a relationship is real, to govern as if life is fragile and therefore worthy of protection. To reconnect humanity to its natural state is not regression. It is evolution with memory, and memory, once reclaimed, becomes direction. The goal is not to return to the forest. It is to bring the forest back into the human heart, into how we work, teach, build, govern, and care. Because when we remember who we are and stop acting like something we are not, and in that remembering, something ancient and necessary begins again. The path we make by walking. By now we know the silence was never empty, it was heavy, loaded with things that we're afraid to name. We've discussed what it feels like to be disconnected from our own hands, from the soil that remembers us, and from the breath that once arrived without effort. And we stood there, not broken, just paused by a world that kept demanding speed when our souls needed stillness. We've been reminded that meaning does not vanish. It waits. It hides in old songs and in borrowed prayers and in the way our ancestors spoke to the sun and thanked the river for staying. It lives in the blessing of the road ahead and in the gratitude for the road behind, in the quiet understanding that we are not alone even when it feels like we are wandering. And now we ask something of us. Not perfection, not certainty, not answers shouted from podiums or screens. It asks for movements, because a path is not found, it is worn into the earth by people brave enough to walk unsure. You do not need to see the whole way forward. You only need to trust the next step honestly. The one taken with humility, the one guided by care for others, the one that says, I will not abandon myself again. The old ones knew this. They walked by stars and stories, by the feel of the ground beneath their feet, by the promise that life answers those who move with intention. So today we rise, not louder but clearer, not harder but truer. We gather what we lost and carry it gently. We listen more than we speak, and we choose to repair over dominance. We remember that belonging is an action. It's not a slogan, and step by step, with breath steady and eyes open, the way reveals itself. Not because the world suddenly becomes kind, but because we decide to become stewards again. Of each other, of the land, of the fragile, stubborn hope that has always survived in us. And this is how we find our path, by walking it together. Thank you.
Otukasha Wakantaga, Creator of the universe, most beloved one, all-powerful one, most kind one, most compassionate one, ever-forgiving one, O most gracious one, O great mystery, O ancient of days, O blessed beauty, we call upon your holy power at this time. And all our ancestors are closer to closest vein to surround us and to bless our brothers, Tom and Jim, and all those who gave their efforts and hearts to manifest the state of the world for them. We ask blessings on each and every one and all their good relatives for that sacrifice they made. In Takashla Wakantaga, we call upon all the tribes and nations of the East from where comes the red sunrise to come together in unity and harmony as prophesied in this very sacred day, the fulfillment of all things. Takashla, we call upon all the tribes and nations of the South from where comes new life to come together in unity and harmony, in oneness and peace, and respect in our oneness, in our sacredness, in our justice. In Takashla Wakantaga, we call upon all the tribes and nations of the West, from where comes thunder, lightning, and rain. The thunder, lightning, and rain might awaken our human family, and we invite them to come join us at this sacred fire of life to give us strength, and we honor them. Takashla Wakantaga, we call upon all the tribes and nations of the North, from where comes the white snow, the purifying north winds, to purify our hearts and minds so we're free from all save your holy power. We humble ourselves before the power of Father Sky. And all Father Sky represents, and we ask forgiveness for our awkward ways, for the overabundant use of people called masculine, divine masculine, until we brought ourselves to this point where we have to make these great changes, where we give thanksgiving for all. And we humble ourselves before our mother, beloved mother, and womankind. We give thanksgiving for our mothers from which each one of us emerged from their wombs, and all the pain and suffering they went through to bring us into this world. And Creator of all good things, we especially ask that at this time, that we truly understand that we're all interrelated. The hurt of one is the hurt of all, and the healing, the honor, the upliftment of one is honor and healing, upliftment of all. So, Creator of all good things, we just give you thanksgiving at this time. And I just want to say this prayer for unity I heard so many years ago. Oh my God, unite the hearts of thy servants and reveal unto them thy great purpose. May they follow thy commandments and abide in thy law. Help them, O God, in their endeavor and grant them strength to serve thee. O God, lead them not to themselves, but guide their steps to the light of knowledge and cheer their hearts by thy love. Verily, thou art our helper, our Lord. In our traditional way, I want to say, Shunkmano he meado, Chinupasapa meado. My names are Shunkmano and Chinupasapa, and I stand fully responsible before the Creator for all my words and my actions, as we all are. Howell Mishante Washte. Aho.